Previous video, you just finished watching a video clip from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. If you were to go in and watch the rest of the film, the turkey deflates, the tree catches on fire. Clark Griswold, the dad here, he ends up kidnapping his boss because his boss doesn't give him a Christmas bonus, and he was banking on that Christmas bonus to build a pool for his family for Christmas. And it's all just very improbable and silly and comes to this point of no return where Clark has to kind of finish kidnapping his boss and bring his boss to his senses. So if you haven't seen any of these movies, they're fantastic and great examples of a farce. The last term we're going to talk about is a parody. If you watch SNL, Saturday Night Live, you are very familiar with parody. So what a parody does is it imitates in order to ridicule. Okay, it's a satirical imitation. It's a satirical imitation of any art form, concept, or social strata. Okay, whoops. So if you've ever seen award shows, sometimes they do this. So here we have oh my gosh, why am I forgetting his name? We've got Weird Al Yankovic, and he is parodying Coolio here. If you listen to any of his music, all of his music is parody. If you watch SNL, they're very fond of doing parodies of presidents past and current. And then if you've ever seen the Austin Powers movies, it's a parody of the old James Bond films. My favorite is when Tina Fey does Sarah Palin, who was running as vice president a couple years ago. Let's watch a video clip of this right now. Things to be looking for in the importance of being earnest. It parodies love, marriage, death, grief, money, class, and religion. Okay, so let's watch a clip here.
And now a nonpartisan message from Governor Sarah Palin and Senator Hillary Clinton.
I was so excited when I was told Senator Clinton and I would be addressing you tonight.
And I was told I would be addressing you alone.
Now, I know it must be a little bit strange for all of you to see the two of us together. What with me being John McCain's running mate,
and me being a fervent supporter of Senator Barack Obama, as evidenced by this button.
But tonight we are crossing party lines to address the now very ugly role that sexism is playing in the campaign.
An issue which I am frankly surprised to hear people suddenly care about.
You know, Hillary and I don't agree on everything.
I believe that diplomacy should be the cornerstone of any foreign policy.
And I can see Russia from my house.
All right, so as you could see in this video clip, they're making fun of both Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton by imitating them. All right, so let's talk about the Victorian era itself. It lasted for quite a while, and as you remember from our Shakespeare unit, in England, they name their time periods after whoever was king or queen at that time. So the Victorian era is from 1837 to 1901 during the reign of Queen Victoria. It was concurrent with the Industrial Revolution. I know you guys have studied this in school, so I want you to think about what do you already know about the Industrial Revolution, because that will factor more heavily into Great Expectations. So during that time, there were major changes in almost every facet of society. There were big changes in science, technology, medicine, and with that brought changes in the class system. So the classes became very polarized. The rich got richer, the poor got even poorer, and the middle class virtually disappeared. Okay. They were also very concerned with etiquette, and that means proper manners, what to wear, how to behave, and how you seem. So people were very, very worried about social ostracism. What that means is being, kind of expelled or ignored by society because you didn't fall in with this proper etiquette. So be aware of these concepts: the Industrial Revolution, the class structure during this time, as well as what is considered proper as we read both The Importance of Being Earnest and Great Expectations. So where the two book works are very different is The Importance of Being Earnest deals with the upper class, whereas Great Expectations really highlights the struggles of the lower class. Now, Great Expectations was written by a man named Charles Dickens. It's really important to know quite a bit about his life because his life really heavily influenced his writing. So as you guys watch this video, I want you to jot down some notes about his life as you listen.
Charles Dickens was the most famous writer in the English language during the 19th century and one of the best-selling authors of all time. He can seem remote, the frock coat, the velvet collar, the fishtail beard, the bow tie, but he has a lot to say to us today, and that's because he had a remarkable ambition. He believed that writing could play a big role in fixing the problems of the world. Dickens didn't just write. From the very beginning there were signs of a great showman. As a child he loved putting on plays in the family kitchen and singing songs standing on a table in the local pub. Before radio or television, going to hear Dickens giving a reading was to experience an exceptional showman. Often to the dismay of later literary friends, entertainment remained at the heart of what Dickens was up to. He was always hoping to get us interested in some pretty serious things: the evils of an industrializing society, the working conditions in factories, child labor, vicious social snobbery, the maddening inefficiencies of government bureaucracy. In theory, we recognize that these, and their modern versions, are pretty worthy themes, but if we're honest with ourselves, we admit that they don't sound very inviting as things to read about in a novel in bed or at the airport. Dickens's genius was to discover that the big ambitions to educate his society about its failings didn't have to be opposed to what his critics called fun. Racy plots, a chatty style, clownish characters, weepy moments, and happy endings. He rejected the idea that we have to make a fatal choice between being worthy but dull or popular but shallow. Dickens set out to educate via entertaining, because he so well understood how easy it is for us individually and collectively to resist certain tricky but important lessons. Dickens is significant because he was working out, for his own time, how to do something that's crucial for ours: how to be seductive about serious things. Charles Dickens was born in Portsmouth in February 1812. His father was a clerk in the Navy Office. They had to constantly move about to follow his different appointments. It was a genteel life at first, but there were always money troubles looming. When he was only 10, Dickens had to leave school because his parents could no longer afford the modest fees. He was sent to work in London at a blacking factory where they made polish for giving a dark sheen, much admired at the time, to metal surfaces. It was a grim experience. Young Dickens hated the fumes and numbing speed with which he had to carry out repetitive tasks. The people he worked around were bullying and sinister. Then his father was arrested for debt. At that time, debtors could be confined to prison, along with their dependents, by their creditors until they were able to start paying off what they owed. So the whole family moved into the squalid Marshalsea prison, except young Dickens, who lodged nearby and continued with his horrible job. Part of the continuing popular affection for Dickens comes from his very strong sense of the precariousness of life and his deep compassion for those who are its victims. When Dickens's life improved, in his early 20s he discovered that he was an outstandingly brilliant journalist. Dickens was very good at remembering his own suffering, and he used it in a very clever way. He always put really nice characters into the awful places of Victorian England. The blacking factory is described in David Copperfield through the eyes of young David, who is sensitive, intelligent, and charming. David is the reader when young, or the reader's son or nephew. Dickens is saying, imagine someone like you, or someone you like, was in somewhere like that. When he writes about poorhouses, which were local forced labour camps for people unable to support themselves, Dickens sends in little Oliver Twist, who actually belongs to a well-to-do family from whom he's been separated by a series of tragic accidents. Oliver is not typical at all of the people who ended up in poorhouses, but he's there so that his readers, who at that time would generally be quite prosperous, could think, what if this were me? On one occasion, when Dickens shows us the miseries of a debtor prison,